Why can we be confident that low and no calorie sweeteners are safe?
That's because we get the results from all this toxicological testing. And when an expert panel, for instance, as in the EFSA, they look into all these toxicological data, they find the studies that provides the most sensitive effect in the most sensitive animal species. So we are really careful that it is at the lowest doses and in the most sensitive animal species we find. And then from these studies we found what we call the no observed adverse effect level, which has no effect in the animals. And that level we divide normally by a factor of 100. So 100 times lower, which we call an acceptable daily intake for humans. We set the ADI, then the next step is not for people in EFSA, but for bodies like the European Commission and the member states to figure out how should this sweetener be used in food, in which amounts, in which foods, and based on huge knowledge on what people do eat in Europe and very conservative estimates of the daily intake of the sweetener from its use in these food, they should make sure that this acceptable daily intake is not exceeded by the European consumer.
Are low and no calorie sweeteners safe for pregnant women?
Yes, they are, because in the data packets that we request, we also request specific studies on the compound in pregnant animals. And in these studies we are looking into a lot of things. One thing is the pregnant animal being fed by the compound, does it damage the fetus in there? And there we look in whether there is some miscarriage, whether there are what we call teratological effect. And then we also have some animals that continue with feeding when the pups are very small and they are living on the mother's milk. So we also get that thing in the data packets, whether the compound, is it excreted in the milk, can it damage the young pup. So that's the one thing. And the other thing is that we are looking into, does the sweetener affect the ability for male animals and female animals to reproduce themselves? So males and females are fed with the compounds, and then they are allowed to reproduce, and then it is determined how well does that go. Is it normal? Is there any effects on that? So these studies are an integral part of the data package. And if it shows up that an effect on these reproductive parameters are the most sensitive effects seen in the whole package, then it should be that effect that drive the establishment of the acceptable daily. The pregnant women has been mimicked by the animal studies, so there's no problem in a pregnant woman to eat foods with artificial sweeteners.